My wife, Claire, slapped the invitation into my palm like she was feeding a circus seal. Melanie's baby shower, top floor of the Rosewood Hotel. Don't embarrass me, she said. Again. If I had a nickel for every time I'd heard those 3 words, I could buy the Rosewood and make them valet my resentment. The invite was a small architectural wonder, embossed, gilded, thick enough to stop a bullet. Classic Melanie. No event too small to stage like a coronation. She married James Clark, investment banker, heir, and man who treats a reservation like a conquest, and her family has never stopped mistaking money for merit. I put on my navy suit, polished my shoes to aircraft warning levels, and fastened the cufflinks Claire bought me back when she pretended my feelings mattered. Armor for the battlefield. The Rosewood's penthouse had been transformed into a pastel fever dream. Chandeliers like weaponized frost, imported flowers that cost more per stem than a decent lunch. The tables wore little calligraphed name cards that told you exactly where you belonged. I looked for mine. I looked again and again. Carol, Claire's mother, queen of the passive-aggressive, floated to my side, diamonds doing their best to blind me. Having trouble finding your seat, dear? She cooed. Her dear could curdle milk. Seems like there's been an oversight, I said. Oh, I don't think so. She tilted her head. Why don't you try that dirty pub across the street? More your style, Claire giggled. Honestly, it would suit him perfectly. The polite laughter that followed echoed off the crystal like applause for a guillotine. I smiled. Not the practiced one. Something calmer. You know what? I'll do exactly that. The room stalled mid-breath. I straightened my tie, nodded, to no one in particular, and walked out like a man late for somewhere better. Boston air hit me like a baptism. Across the street, the harbor light looked exactly like what they hoped it was. Brick, modest, a little weathered, a place for the help. What they didn't know, what I'd never told them, was that those scuffed doors were mine. Every table, every blade, every grain of finishing salt, the harbor light wasn't a dive, it was my life's work. Evening, chef, Marcus called from the pass when I stepped in. Chef, echoed the pastry chef, steady hands over a perfect dessert. The dining room hummed, faces lit by the kind of joy only great food creates. Respect hangs different in the air when it's earned. Through the Rosewood's glass above, I imagined faces pressed to the view, waiting to see me lick my wounds in a dirty pub. Instead, they watched me welcomed home. 2 days later, the Boston Globe detonated on doorsteps citywide. Front of the lifestyle section, the harbor light, Boston's hidden crown jewel, 3 pages. Words like art, discipline, transcendence. Photos of the sea bass with saffron reduction. I bled 2 years to perfect, the chocolate souffle that makes grown men close their eyes. Training under killers in French kitchens. 2 Michelin stars. 8-month waitlist. Letters of recommendation for new diners. My phone rioted. Food and wine, Bon Appetit, TV shows, investors, and then Carol. We need to talk, she said, voice suddenly human. Of course, I replied. Our hostess can advise on availability. Please note we require a letter of recommendation from a previous guest. Click. The ripples turned tidal. The finance boys who'd treated me like Claire's charity case were suddenly asking James for a table. He called the restaurant full name and title. Sarah, our hostess, was honey sweet. We're fully booked for 8 months, Mr. Clark. You'll need a letter, perhaps from the chef himself? Somewhere, a vein in his forehead burst. A week later, Carol materialized on the sidewalk, frozen mid-stride as Marcus whispered, Chef, Michelin is at table 7. Daniel Volov, a pianist who makes pianos weep, clapped my shoulder. You are about to make history, he said. I looked at Carol through the window. Looking for a table? I called over. We're booked for 8 months. Happy to waitlist you. She fled like the building was on fire. Then the envelope. Cream paper, my handwriting, dropped at Claire's mother's door. True value is not found in decoration, but in essence. If you want to understand what I've built, learn what it costs to build. Start at the bottom. Earn your place, not an ultimatum. a map. They could grasp the destination only by walking. 3 months later, Melanie showed up at the staff entrance. 7 months pregnant and dressed like a magazine's idea of casual. She swallowed and said, "I'm here about the position." "We're not hiring management," I said. "Dish pit, minimum wage, 10 hours, 1 15-minute break every 4, weekends, holidays, no special treatment." Her hands shook, but she nodded. "When do I start?" A week after that, Carol arrived, wrapped in a St. John suit and entitlement. I put her front of house, greet, seat, water, wipe. She nearly combusted the first time someone sent soup back and asked her to fix it. But by week 10, she was moving like someone who understood that service is a craft, not a costume. Melanie bled at the hands, sobbed in the walk-in, then kept coming. By month 2, she anticipated needs. By month 6, she asked about knife work. By 9, her julienne wouldn't embarrass us. After a brutal Saturday, staff meal broke them. I roasted chicken with root veg, simple, unapologetically perfect. Melanie took a bite and cried, 10 years, and we never asked. Carol stared at her plate like it had become a mirror. "I had no idea," she whispered. "You wouldn't have understood," I said. "You never tried." A year passed. Carol traded 40 pounds of performance for a new posture, competence. Guests asked for her because she cared. Melanie became a focused, steady prep cook. "Behind you, chef," she'd call, sliding trays to the cold station, hands quick and sure. The anniversary, I closed the Harbor Light for a quiet brunch. No theater. Biscuits from churned butter. Eggs 3 ways. House-cured bacon. Wildflowers in mason jars. Essence, not ornament. "This," I said as they sat, "is the point. Not the price. The care." Melanie's tears were different now. Understanding. Not fatigue. "I can taste the time," she said. Carol nodded, eyes bright. "I spent 62 years confusing expensive with better. Worth has nothing to do with price tags." Claire, quieter than the rest, finally asked, "So, what now?" "Now we keep building," I said. "You keep learning. You earn your place, in this family, in this life. Not because of who you married or who your parents are, but because of who you choose to become." "And if we mess it up?" Claire asked. I raised my coffee in a small toast. "Then you start over. That's what real people do." For the first time in a decade, their laughter didn't chase me to the door. It sounded like home.